Hey guys, what's going on? This is GD O'Reilly, and today we're going to be talking about, does gear matter? So you're just getting started in this business and you want to start creating some of your first films. Do you need to go out and drop $10,000 on gear? Well, to me, no, you don't. To get started, you should. Gear doesn't help you tell a story. It just makes your life easier. You can go out and buy and rent $10,000 worth of gear. You can go buy $10,000 worth of gear. You can buy a Sony a7S III, bunch of fast primes, a couple of lights, $2,000 on audio gear. And is that going to help you if your story's bad and you don't know what to say? Nope, that's not going to help you. But if you've got a great story and you're struggling to get it with your iPhone and an old Zoom recorder, maybe it's time to get started buying or renting some gear. For reference, most of my videos have been shot on a Canon SL2, holding Canon cameras like T2Is, T3Is, T5Is, T6Is, T7Is, 60, 70, 80, 77D, SL2, SL3. They're all pretty well the same. They all either do 1080p 30 or 1080p 60 onto SD cards. The I in the T letter I designates that it has a mic in. If you don't need a mic in, so you're going to do all external recording, you can grab something like a T5, T6. All those cameras are often under $300 to $400 on the older side. Some of the newer ones are maybe closer to $500 to $600, but really you shouldn't pay anything more than about $500 to $600 for an ADD or an SL3 and older. As for lenses, you got two options. You can go and you can buy your $100, $200 primes, right? Yongnuo makes cheap primes, but I've covered at least some. They're a 35 and 50 millimeter for Canon EF. Those two are an incredibly affordable pair. The two of them combined is $150. They're not the best primes in the world. They're f2, which is okay. Their autofocus is noisy. Their build is cheap. I had one that got dropped about a foot and a half. It got one of the end stops on the focus ring broke. In that same fall, I had an old Russian Helios 44 that got dropped, and it got a slightly bent front filter ring, which isn't a big deal. As for audio, you can get a Zoom H4, H4n. If you're trying to do external XLR audio, you can get one of those. If you just need a halfway decent audio solution, your phone with a good lav or shotgun, so typically between 50 and $100 will do wonders for you. Or you can go with something like an H1 or H1n. And then, I can't remember Tascam, but Tascam makes some budget recorders in that range between, say, about 80 and 125, $150. There are budget options from Tascam that'll do XLR or that just do 3.5 millimeter. As for budget wireless systems, I'd really avoid any of the wireless systems under $200. And even at $200, stuff like the Rode Wireless is okay. It's not a great system, and I would probably wait to get into like a used G3 or used Sennheiser G3 or G4 at $400 to $500 over buying a lot of the cheaper wireless gear. Tripods, if you're talking, you can buy cheap photo tripods are $20, $30, $40. There's really no point in buying a $200 photo tripod if you're going to shoot video. The entry-level fluid head tripods, which is what you want for video, started around $75 to $100. Magnus makes some pretty cheap ones in there. Slik, SLIK, has some tripods in that range as well. And then you start getting into Manfrotto and other companies. If you're talking about lighting and that kind of stuff, it matters where you film. If you film outside all the time, you probably don't need lights. Instead, probably what you need is neutral density filters and big reflectors, stuff to move sunlight around. You probably don't need to spend a bunch of money on lights. On the other hand, if you film inside, you probably need some sort of light. So you got a bunch of different options. You got older tungsten. I love older RE tungstens are often $100 to $200 for old RE lights that are 600 or 650 watt bulbs. Super bright. I've got two in a weird fashion. lighting me right now. Godox has some decent options in that range, but they can be on the noisier side. Typically, if you're going to get into LEDs, you're more at the $400 to $500 range for decent LEDs. Godox SL152 UL, which is the completely passive. Of course, you got apertures, 120Ds. Kind of have to pick whether you go with tungsten or daylight balanced, because most of the bicolor options are expensive with stuff like the Intelitech Canon X100. As for stands, cheap, $25, $30 for a pair. Heavy duty light stands do decent. Really, I wouldn't pay anything more than about 15 to 20 bucks per stand. You can typically find C stands, which are a lot heavier duty and carry a lot more weight. They're just a better stand overall. Used maybe in the low 100s. And then you start getting into some of the budget brands like Impact. So in the end, is spending $10,000 on gear going to make you a better filmmaker? No, it doesn't. What it's about is making your life easier and having better reliability. Gear isn't going to change whether or not your story is good or whether or not your subject is interesting. If you guys like this video, like it. If you didn't, that other button seems to work okay. And I will catch you guys in 2 weeks, I believe, with my FS700R review. Although I may change that. We may be going over something else, but stay tuned.